Hi everybody, this is Kristan from Lion Learners East Midlands. Normally at this time of year I'd be out and about visiting lots of schools with my animal gang, but since we're all at home at the moment we thought we'd maybe bring the school to you. The most popular school session that I do is definitely our Year 1 science session. So I thought I'd do a little version of that for you this morning with the help of some of my animal creatures that have taken over my living room this morning. And in Year 1, children learn about the difference between mammals, reptiles, amphibians, birds and fish. So I have got some of those creatures here so that we can meet them and find out a bit more about them. Okay, let's start by meeting a creature that you're probably quite familiar with. This is the lovely Cookie. What kind of creature is Cookie? That's right. He is a rabbit. He's actually a mini Rex rabbit. What is his body covered in? He feels nice and soft to stroke. What is this that's all over Cookie's body? You're right, it's fur. Bunnies are furry creatures. Why has he got a furry coat on? What's his furry coat for? Well, it's to keep him nice and warm. So it means that Cookie is very happy to go out in the garden and play no matter what the weather's doing. His furry coat keeps him lovely and warm. So he actually quite likes a cool day better than he does a very hot summer's day. And rabbits are part of a group of creatures that all, except for the ones that live in the ocean, wear a furry coat. I wonder if you know what type of creature they are, what group of creatures they are, beginning with an Right, rabbits are mammals. So are we, and mammals are very special because they can keep their bodies warm on the inside, even when it's cold on the outside. So inside Cookie's body, the temperature stays the same all of the time. So does ours. So even when we go outside on a cold day and we think, ooh, it's chilly today, inside our bodies everything stays the same temperature and everything works just fine. And we can put a winter coat on and make ourselves feel a bit snugglier. Cookie wears his winter coat all of the time. And some mammals live in very, very cold places. Polar bears are mammals that can live in the snow. So mammals can live in very cold parts of the world where some other types of creature that we're going to meet later would really, really struggle to live. While we've still got the lovely Cookie with us, there's something else that's really special about mammals. They are one of the only types of creature on the planet that have live babies. So they don't lay eggs. So Mum Rabbit, when Cookie was born, will have had babies, live babies from her body, and then mammals are very good mums. They look after their babies until they're old enough to not need mum to look after them anymore, and they feed them milk from their bodies until they can start to eat all of the other things that they might like to eat, like grass and vegetables. Hey Cookie. So this is what a baby rabbit looks like when it's newly born, and they need mummy to look after them until they're a little bit bigger. Right, so let's let Cookie go back with his friend Ted, and then we can meet the next creature. Okay, so the next creature we're going to meet is most definitely not a mammal. This is Blizzard. How do I know that Blizzard is not a mammal? You're right, it's because he isn't wearing a furry coat, is he? He has scaly skin. Let me give you a close-up of Blizzard's scaly skin. There we go. So Blizzard isn't furry, he's scaly. Do you know the name for the type of creature that has scaly skin? Begins with R, and you might have seen a section for this in your local pet shop. Yep, you're right, Blizzard is a reptile. He is actually a lizard called a bearded dragon, and that's an Australian lizard. But all lizards are reptiles because of their lovely scaly skin. and their skin is very, very tough. It protects them from maybe predators, or from if they go over a rock or a rough surface. They've got very, very tough skin that's not easily damaged. And also, nothing goes in or out through Blizzard's skin. So even when it's really, really hot, Blizzard doesn't sweat. So he doesn't lose any water, which means that Blizzard can live in a very hot, dry place that maybe we would struggle to live in if we had to be outside all of the time. And so Australia is the perfect place for Blizzard. But he hasn't got a furry coat helping him to stay warm. So it means that Blizzard can't actually live in a really cold climate. And there aren't many reptiles that do. And that's because they are cold-blooded. That doesn't mean that Blizzard's blood is cold all the time. At the moment, Blizzard feels lovely and warm. He's just come out of his lovely heated vivarium. It means that his body temperature on the inside is the same as it is on the outside around him. So if I put Blizzard outside in the garden and it was a very cold day, eventually he would become very cold on the inside and nothing would work. So he would get way too chilly. And so he couldn't live in Britain. He wouldn't be able to survive our winters. But actually, yesterday, he had a little bit of time to sunbathe because it was lovely and warm in the garden yesterday, didn't you, Blizzard? And it's his favourite thing to do. So where does a baby reptile come from? If mammals are the only creatures that have live babies, where would a baby bearded dragon come from? You're right, he came from an egg. And actually, bearded dragon mums lay their eggs and leave them, and then the babies are on their own right from the beginning of their life. They hatch out and have to go and look for food and look after themselves right from being a tiny baby, so they have to be pretty tough. Hey, Blizzard. Okay, so we've met a mammal and a reptile. Now let's meet a bird. This is Dottie, and she is a type of bird called a Japanese quail. How do we know that Dottie is a bird and not a mammal or a reptile? Well, the first thing is that she has wings. She's just about going to let me show you her wings. She doesn't really want to. She says, no. There we go. Oh, there we go. Good demo. There's her lovely wings. So that some birds can fly really, really well using their wings. Dottie is a bird that doesn't fly an awful lot. She spends most of her time living on the ground, running around on the grass and in the bushes. But if she was really frightened and she thought a predator was going to eat her, she can use her wings and her powerful legs to jump up in the air and come back down somewhere entirely different and unexpected to get away from the predator. And by the time they figured out where she'd landed, she'd be off again, up in the air again, a bit like a pheasant. So she's very good at helping herself to stay safe from predators. What else tells us she's a bird? Well, her body is covered in feathers. Let me see if I can get her closer to the camera so you can see her a bit better. So she hasn't got fur, she's actually covered in feathers. Let me show you her feathers on her bum as well. You can see her fluffy feathers. And feathers are important for birds. They help her to fly, but also they keep her nice and warm. She's got layers of feathers so that she's nicely insulated from the cold. She doesn't get too chilly. And she's quite waterproof too. So if she gets rained on, it doesn't go all the way down to the bottom layer of her feathers and her skin and make her too cold. So she's quite a waterproof creature. Also, what's this on the front of her face? This is her beak. So she uses her beak, obviously, to eat and to drink, but also she uses it to investigate anything that's new around. So if I put something new in her run in the garden, her and her little friends that she lives with will go and investigate and peck at it and say, "Ooh, what's that?" Because she hasn't got hands to pick things up like we have, and so she uses her beak in a similar way to figure out what new things are. So the last thing, before we let Dottie go back to her friend and away from Blizzard, I don't think she's very impressed with him down there. Where do baby birds come from? That's a really easy question, isn't it? They come from an egg. And here are some quail eggs from Dottie and her friends. So at this time of year, they're starting to lay eggs almost every day. Dottie and her friends are all girls. So inside these eggs there aren't any baby chicks. They're eating eggs, a bit like the chicken eggs you buy from the supermarket, only littler because they're a littler bird. But if I had a boy quail around, then there could be chicks inside those eggs. And if I kept them warm for a few weeks, or if Dottie sat down on them and made them warm herself, then they could hatch out to be a baby chick. And they are very small, tiny enough to fit inside one of these eggs. So they're very, very tiny when they first hatch out. Okay, so now we've met a mammal, a reptile, a bird. Next we're going to meet an amphibian. We're going to meet Ziggy. This is Ziggy. Ziggy looks a little bit like a lizard with a wetsuit on, but actually he's not a lizard at all, because he isn't a reptile, he's an amphibian. And what makes him an amphibian is mainly the way that he started his life. He is related to frogs and toads. Who knows what a baby frog is before it's a frog? You're right, it is a tadpole. So mummy frog comes along, lays her eggs, frog spawn, in a pond or in a stream, and out of them come tadpoles, which are little black swimming creatures. They breathe underwater like a fish and they swim. But slowly they change. They start to grow legs, their tail starts to shrink, and at the same time they're getting lungs inside them so they can breathe air like we can. And so then when they become a frog, they're an air-breathing creature. So frogs might go back into the water from time to time, and frogs are pretty good at swimming, but they don't breathe underwater anymore like a tadpole. They are like us. So if they want to go under the water, they have to go hold their breath and then come back up for air later on. They can't breathe underwater. And Ziggy is just the same. He started his life as a creature called a water dog, which is similar to a tadpole, and he was a swimming creature that breathed underwater just like a fish. He had gills, and he'd stay like that for a certain period of time, sometimes quite a long time, depending on the weather and other conditions if they're a wild salamander. But slowly they change and they get lungs just like a frog has, and now Ziggy is a land creature. He can't even swim. He's not designed for swimming. He's a crawling around on the ground kind of a creature. He hasn't got swimming legs like a frog. So he would never go back to water unless he was a girl and he wanted to lay some eggs. And that's where they would be laid. But then the girls have to be very careful, because if they go in deep water, they'll drown. They can't breathe under the water anymore and they can't swim, so they have to be very, very careful. Another thing that makes him an amphibian rather than a reptile is his skin. He does not have tough, scaly skin like Blizzard, which means I have to put gloves on to hold him and I have to be very careful, because he can breathe and he can drink through his skin, which is pretty amazing. So if I had dirt on my hands, which I might well do because I've just been touching lots of the other creatures that are here in my living room this morning, then I can pass dirt into his body from my hands. He can suck it up and it can make him poorly. Another reason why I'm wearing gloves is because fire salamanders like Ziggy can do something amazing if they think of predators after them. He can squirt some stuff out of his skin that makes him taste really, really bad. And then other creatures would just spit him out and go, "Ugh, I'm not going to eat you." And so if I get that on my hands and then I pick up another one of the animals, it can make them feel pretty poorly. So we don't want to do that. And it means that Ziggy, if he was a wild salamander, wouldn't have very many predators, because other creatures remember his yellow spots are a warning. saying, "I taste awful, don't eat me." So not many things would like to eat Ziggy, which is lucky for him because he's not a very fast running away kind of a creature. Let me pop Ziggy back in his tank. Take my gloves off. And then I can show you a little picture of a water dog. So that's what Ziggy was like. It's very shiny. He was an underwater swimming creature when he was a baby, which is how all amphibians start their life. Okay, so we're nearly at the end of our video now. We have met a mammal, a reptile, an amphibian, a bird. We can't meet a fish because I don't have any fish that I can show you. But if I did, it would be in the water because fish have gills and they can only breathe if they're under the water. So like this lovely goldfish here. But let's have a quick recap. I'm going to very quickly show you another reptile. I wonder if you can guess what she might be covered in, what's all over a reptile's body. And she's very long and she has no legs. What kind of creature do you think she's going to be? Let's see. Let's meet Rio. There we go. This is the lovely Rio. Rio is a snake, of course. She's a corn snake. And if I bring her closer, you can see her beautiful scales. You can see each individual scale on her skin. So she's got very tough, scaly skin, just like Blizzard the lizard, that helps to protect her from injuries, and it doesn't let anything in or out of her skin, so I can handle her and not worry about it. In fact, she really likes being handled, and as you can see, she's very beautiful and very gentle. Shall we see one last creature? So, the last creature is round the corner so that Rio can't see him because he's a little mammal. So if he's a mammal, what's he going to be covered in? What's all over his body? Let's wait and see. His name is Dobby, and he looks a little bit like lunch to Rio. So they can't ever be out together. Hello, Dobby. Here he is. This is Dobby. Isn't he cute? Dobby is a creature called a duprezi, which is a small mammal related to hamsters and gerbils. So his common name is a fat-tailed gerbil because of his little fat tail. He is nocturnal, he's a night creature, so normally he'd be asleep right now. But he's very used to being woken up to meet people at schools and parties and other places, and he doesn't mind at all. He's pretty easygoing, isn't he? He's very cute, and he's a good place to end our video. I hope you've enjoyed watching it and seeing some of the lovely creatures, and hopefully we'll be able to visit you at school at some point soon. Bye bye from me and Dobby and Cookie and Blizzard and Ziggy and Dotty and Rio. Bye.